Thank you everyone for joining today. Playcast, lead accounts here at Draft.dev. We specialize in technical content marketing. We're joined by Leon and Spence today. We're going to be chatting about interactive content and best ways to go about it, why there's a shift towards it, why maybe static content or traditional content formats may not be working as effectively as they used to in the past. But before we kick into all that, I'd love to give Leon and Spence a second to introduce themselves and what they do at their org. So Leon, let's maybe start with you, man.
All right, you're taking a risk, man. You let me talk. I suck all the oxygen out of the room, and I just never stop. All right, we're going to try to do this fast. My name is Leon Adato. I'm a principal technical advocate at Catchpoint. That's Catchpoint, catchpoint.com. Anyway, sorry, had to do the commercial. I've been working in tech for about 36 years. For those people who need a reference, that's when Windows came for free on 12 5.25-inch floppy disks. And I focused on monitoring and observability for about 27 years. I started off with Tivoli, also known as 3 Perl scripts in a trench coat. And I've been a developer relations advocate slash evangelist slash whatever you want to call it for about 11 years now. And you can find me at adatosystems.com or, as I said before, on catchpoint.com.
Nice and succinct, Leon.
Good job, Leon.
Whew.
How do I follow up? Okay. My name is Spence Taylor. I am a lead developer relations engineer at New Relic. Me and Leon actually used to be coworkers, which is a really awesome experience. I have been in tech since 2018. I went the non-traditional route, did a boot camp, got my first job actually at New Relic. Found out about this crazy world known as monitoring and observability and was just shocked at the sheer scale of it. So my entire career has been in the monitoring space. I started off in product, did that for about 3 years, and 3 years. And then I went the engineering management route for a while, focusing on improving New Relic's hiring practices. We were just trying to make it easier for managers to manage and also more effective for people who were applying. And then shortly after that, I got bored and I decided that I wanted to talk about the product more. And so I ended up joining the DevRel team, and I've been on the DevRel team here at New Relic for about 2 years now. Do everything from webinars to game days. I'm really pushing interactive workshops. So it's going to be an interesting conversation to have with Leon.
Yeah, you guys are doing wild stuff. Oh, go ahead, Leon.
I just wanted to correct one thing for people who are listening. You said, you went the non-traditional route, you went to a boot camp. I would argue that is a traditional route. I think that's a perfectly valid, the days of, oh, yes, I took a CS degree from MIT and now I'm in, that's the non-traditional route nowadays.
That's true. Absolutely.
So for those
webinar topic for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. All right. So guys, I always like to start high level. Let's sort of define what we're talking about, and then we'll move down and get a little bit more specific. So right off the bat, when you think, traditional static resources, whether that's written documentation, your typical blog articles, maybe even video, anything that's passively consumed, you're not really interacting with, why is some of that failing to engage with the current audience, or why it may not be as effective moving forward? And let's, I'll give it to Spence's side. Let's have you kick it off.
Yeah. I think, it's 2025. We've survived a pandemic. And if anybody walks around and says that didn't change how they view the world or how they interact with the world, they're lying. I used to be highly engaged in my meetings that I would have in person, but doing Zoom meetings, attention starts to wane. And I just think attention spans are not as solid as they were before. I think you still definitely interact with static or passive content that you absolutely need to pay attention to. But when that's like your primary form of interacting or learning about something new, it becomes this very difficult thing to like focus on. And I just think it's not as effective as it used to be. Yeah, that's my take.
So I'm just going to go a little contrarian, although it's supporting a lot of what Spence just said, is that it's not failing to engage today's developers. It's just got competition. That I think that there's still plenty of reason to have so-called passive or static content types. I think that, as I was talking with a friend about this, they said, I'm trying to imagine a world where, 5 years from now, I'm looking through a bunch of comments under a tutorial to find out how the app works because there's no documentation for it. Like, there's still going to be the static version of step 1, step 2, step 3, just do this stuff. It also, I think that passive versus active is about different learning styles. Some people really don't want the pressure of something saying, do the next step, do it now, do this thing. Like, I want to read it, I want to think about it, I want to make some notes in the margins maybe, or whatever it is. So it's really just a matter of having more options, and therefore people whose learning style is drawn to, no, talk to me, work with me, make it, make me think about it, keep me focused on it. Now they have an avenue to do that where they didn't before.
Yeah. Thanks for selling our company for us. We obviously agree that like both need to exist, like as static content writers, working on blog posts. But even like the passive content itself, we're seeing is having to evolve, particularly like people using AI to search. It's your typical top of funnel content just isn't going to cut it anymore. It's difficult to measure, and you're going to get a lot better engagement out of more opinionated pieces, thought leadership, middle and bottom. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so it's always been difficult to measure. I mean, that has been the DevRel conundrum. And Spence, you can chime in. How do you know that the blog was successful?
Exactly.
Like, I wrote it. I felt good about it. My mom really enjoyed it. Like, there is no success. I wrote it, man. It didn't explode the computer when I posted it. That's about the only success.
It's not going to break the internet when you post it.
Yeah, that's my favorite is when new clients come to us, they go, we want to go viral. I'm like, man, I don't know an agency that like can offer that with an honest look on their face. Like, that's not how this works. Yeah.
Yeah, not at all. I think, like, I fully agree. Like, even in my role in this position that I've taken on this interactive versus like static content, like, I am hugely supportive of both, but that doesn't mean that I've stopped writing blog posts or I don't have to make video content anymore. Like, there are, like Leon said, like, no matter what, I might agree that this is the best way to do it, but that's just like my personal opinion. But like he said, people have different learning styles and they're going to engage with content differently. It's the same with anything. Like, I am a let me do something type of learner.
Yeah.
I would rather do something or like show me how it's supposed to be done. But if you want me to read like 10 pages about a thing, I'm like, no, like, can we just get in there and try stuff out? And then like I'll ask questions as I go along. Like, that's just who I am. So in my DevRel role, that's why I push like getting people in a room and like giving them access to my platform and like, go ahead, like try and figure out these scenarios without, some people don't know anything about the platform when they walk in. Yeah.
We're going to get to it a little bit later, I think, but I want to comment that passive versus active, and what you just said, Spence, about, don't give me 10 pages. It depends on who you are and what you're trying to do, because there are circumstances where either the person reading it or the thing I'm going through is like, that's the thing I need. I need the 10-page analysis. Get out of my way. Don't do the frou-frou. I don't want to click like and subscribe. I just want to be able to get down to the part of the details that I need. And the only way for me to get there quickly is to have static content that I can scan.
Yeah.
So I think that there's, again, it's about different use cases sometimes.
100%.
Totally agree. So let's maybe get into a little bit more of like the use cases here. So when it comes to like passive content, where are the elements where it's not as successful as active comment, working from each of your perspectives? What gaps maybe do you observe with it? We'll toss the ball to you this time, Leon.
So, okay, if we can take a sidetrack and just for people who aren't 100% clear, and to be honest, I did some Googling also on what
Sure.
we mean when we say passive content versus active
Great
content.
call, Leon. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
passive content is often characterized by minimal engagement, lack of interaction or interactivity, a level of sort of mindlessness, content that that causes or is marked by zoning out. Scrolling your phone is kind of the example of that. Also, passive content has a repetitive pattern, right? It's repetitive format or repetitive reading habits. If you think your listicles or whatever, those are passive content types. So, examples of things like that, like, the one that I always think of is TikTok, because I don't know about you, but for me, TikTok is basically the equivalent of an alien abduction. I open the app and now it's 2 hours later and I have no idea where I was. I just have no concept where the time went. So, again, binge watching, browsing shopping sites without an intention to buy, those are all passive content types. So, having defined those, I think that the challenge is that it's easy to reach people with passive content models. They don't have to expend a whole lot of effort to decide whether they want to read it or not, but it's hard to teach. And as we were just talking about, to know that you have reached that person, to know that you have actively affected them in any sort of meaningful way. And that's on, and did I learn something? Did it work is for both the reader and the writer or the publisher, right? The publisher doesn't know who read it or why or what they got out of it, but the reader also has a hard time gauging, did this help me in any meaningful way? Again, if you think about TikTok, very few people walk away from, 2 hours of TikTok and think, I am a new person, I have been transformed. Like, that's not typically what happens. Um, I would also, again, point out that active versus passive is not an either or, it's a both and.
Yeah.
We have to consider that, that following a framework, that template for user documentation, step-by-step instructions, is deeply helpful to the user who has to now learn 3 or 5 or 27 different skills in a platform. Like, yes, give me a familiar format so that I can walk through it and you're not throwing different things at me every single time. That's a plus, not a minus. But obviously, when you're teaching a single new skill and you want the person completely focused on what you're doing, then an active or interactive format is going to be better. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'll stop now.
I love it, man. I wish everyone came in hot with opinions on these. Sometimes we have a more passive guest, and it's very yes or no answers. I'll prefer this every day of the week. What about you, Spence? Anything to add there, man?
I was going to say, if you're looking for an active opinion, you definitely found the right person in Leon. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of what Leon said. Like, these two things are not separate, like
Yep.
they support each other. For the most part, I think that when it comes to, and I think Leon, you made this point like beautifully, was that when I want someone to focus on a thing, so like a lot of the interactive work that I do, it's about like new features or new things that we're announcing or particular like use cases, or maybe I'm engaging a customer that has a particular problem. Like, I am creating content like specifically to fit, like to focus on that need or that want of solving like this issue. Like, I don't understand how to use this feature on your platform to solve this problem. And that's like where the interactive piece comes in. And the like passive pieces are, like Leon said, like general use. Like, I don't know who's going to read this, but I know that a lot of people maybe need to know about it. Like, everybody needs to know how application performance monitoring works, or like what a log is, or what a metric is, or what are traces. Like, these foundational ideas need to be explained. And the best way to, build the foundation is the way that we all learned in school. Like, we start with a textbook, we learn like these foundational ideas, and then you work them out in the world. Or you're a new engineer on some startup, and now you have to work with 5 to 6 different third-party services. And the best way for you to get engaged with that content is just dig right into the documentation, learn how to get started, walk through the hello world of that program, and work. Like, you don't need me to say like, all right, now I'm gonna teach you how to make an AI bot and monitor it like today, because that's not where you're at. And not what interactive content's purpose is.
So you guys are just, well, I probably because I shared the question with you for it, but you're lining up where I want to go with this perfectly. So when it comes to the interaction of these two sort of formats of content, passive and active, and then the developer's learning journey, sort of that developer path through experiencing and gaining familiarity with your product, where does it fall within that learning journey? I guess where do you like to see or use each element? You've sort of talked on it a little bit. Would like to hear you guys get a little bit more depth on that.
Yeah, Leon, you want to go ahead?
Sure. So one of the things that I was thinking about when we were, teeing this up was, sometimes it's developer who and content what, right? So where things work and how things work out depends on the audience that you're talking to and what you're trying to teach them. This is building on what Spence was saying before. Like, again, a seasoned veteran may do just fine with passive content. Spencer, you were just talking about, reading through the documentation and just digging through it. And that's good, especially when it's like a list of, okay, here's our API, a list of API endpoints. Mm-hmm. I do not need a glowing handheld walkthrough of and just give me the list, man. I just need to call them in my code. Like, that's it. As opposed to when you're talking to somebody who's either new to brand or new to the area, again, new to APM, new to network monitoring, whatever, where you want to make sure that they have that foundational set of skills. Like, no, we're going to open up a terminal right now, and we're going to type traceroute right now, even though you'll never actually do it. I want you to see what that looks like, because now we're going to set out a traceroute test in the tool, and you're going to see how the stuff that you saw that, so that's where you want to step-by-step people through it. I'm telling you, I'm not God's gift to technology, but if for some things, if you make me watch a 20-minute video that has 5 minutes of precursor of, hey, thanks for joining my channel, I am out of there so fast. It's like a cartoon puff of smoke in the shape of my body. I'm just like gone. So that's, I guess that's my thought on the appropriateness of it, if that helps. I kind of went on a tangent, so
totally. No, tangents are more than welcome here. You're a safe place sort of for tangents.
Yeah, I think I'll step in a little bit. Yeah, because I agree that I think we both agree on a lot of the same things, that there are, like, they each have a place, and I've been trying to figure out, the combo, like, how do I make like interactive content that is foundational, that anybody can just do? Or like, I don't even necessarily like need to be in the room. It could be like, I'm going to keep using monitoring examples, but like distributed tracing, like, how is it useful? Like, can I create like a piece of content that someone can actively engage with? Like, I put them into a scenario that requires them to use this particular part of the monitoring world to solve a problem. And can I make that content work in a way where it's like they get in the mindset, okay, like, this is breaking my e-commerce site. Like, there's some issues going on and it's not affecting all of my customers, maybe like a small subset. So how do I use like distributed tracing to solve this problem? Like, it's a foundational skill when you're talking about distributed tracing, like, to find out whether or not this is a systemic problem or if this is just like an isolated incident for a subset of users. But like, I can't communicate that through documentation like every time, but like I could create like a small 15-minute thing for you to run through to understand, like, okay, this is how distributed tracing is used in that way. And those could be either like in-person events where I'm like working with customers, or I can create something that's more self-serve where they can go on, like, I don't know, AWS workshops and like pull one up and take a look. Yeah.
So all that spits, our conversation before this call, let's get a little bit more into like specific formats. You've been doing something really interesting, I feel like, in New Relic lately. Let's talk formats a little bit. And if you're down to share a little bit of what you've been working on.
Yeah. So if you've been to reInvent, AWS runs these events at the conference called Game Days, and all Game Days are you come in as a team and you have to solve what they call quests. And these quests are usually centered around certain product features. So there's like stuff for security, stuff for EC2, stuff for EKS. But what they've been doing lately is they work with their partners to build like bespoke content for like that partner. So like last year, we sponsored the conference and we were able to build a game day with AWS around like New Relic browser, distributed tracing, and just like front end applications, focusing on like developer experience. But it was a very eye opening thing for me because I got to sit in a room and see 400 people like all focused on learning about this thing that they'd never touched. So I wanted to take that and then like really bring it into like how we operate DevRel. So that's sort of like the bespoke thing that we're doing. Like we're engaging with customers, having them compete in this like competitive environment to like learn how to use these features. I create a scenario. I create an application for that scenario. I break it in ways that are topical for what the topic is. And then I just release it on unsuspecting attendees. I don't give them any documentation. I don't tell them anything about the platform. And I just like let them run free. And if they get stuck, I have like, there are hints and things that are built in to help like unstick them. But like, I'm like, chaos ensues. Like you're in there and I'm not in the room anymore. And they compete and they learn like aggressively because of the competitive environment. Like they don't want to lose. So they're like looking through documentation because they want to learn how the feature works. Like they're discovering things on the platform. They're looking at it from different angles because in monitoring observability, there isn't always just one way to find the answer. So it's really interesting to see.
So that's you can tell you're a D&D guy or a tabletop.
Yeah, it's like being a DM. Oh my god, am I a monitoring DM?
Oh yeah, man.
Oh my gosh,
hey, there's the new podcast title. There we go. We'll roll with that. Yeah. What about you, Leon? What format do you see that's just really tickled your fancy?
Okay, so first of all, just reflecting on what's been said for a minute, and I'm gonna do the the stroking the beard thing. Back in my day, we used to have these things called hackathons, and I'll point out that when somebody of my age says hackathon, we do not mean the thing that all the kids do, or just like basically go someplace and build things. A hackathon was where you actually tried to break into something. And we had, like, capture the flag was one of the things you did at a hackathon, where an entire environment was set up with secret files or secret whatever, and you would work either individually or as a team to find that thing. Sound familiar? That's, the same, like your game day describes what the old hackathon concept was, where you gamify and people learn through doing. It's not that they're going to know everything about how to do it when they come. Yeah, sure, there's always ringers who walk in the door and they have it all figured out. But normally the point of I'll say hackathon, you'll say game day, is that you learn as you go, that the discovery, the aha moments are what does it. So some other interactive formats that are doable. For another example, if you have an active community platform where people are showing up not just for glorified tech support, but they are actually showing up to be members of a community. I sort of euphemistically refer to it as the Bechdel test of community. So for those people who aren't familiar, the Bechdel test is a gauge of how well it represents women, how well a piece of content represents women, whether it's a book or a story or a movie or a TV show or what have you. And the Bechdel test, the test itself, is that you have two female characters who have names, like they're actual people, who talk to each other, not about a dude. Like that's, and if you have that, you have the bare minimum representation for women in that piece of content. And it's amazing how many pieces of content fail the Bechdel test. So the Bechdel test of community is that you have two accounts with fully filled out profiles, right? They weren't just set up 15 minutes ago. And they are talking to each other, not about your product, right? They're talking to each other about something else. If you have a community where that kind of interaction is supported, then you can do things like a mission, basically a daily quiz that is about the product, right? And it's got a question, it's got a hint, it's got either multiple choice or fill in the blank or whatever. But to find the answer, you have to go into the product and find out what it is or where it is. And into the product could be the documentation, it could be a video, it could be the demo of it, right? But this is a way, one question a day, of getting people into the thing interactively, but in a way that's not particularly stressful. One question a day. Everyone can usually carve out 5 minutes to do it. And how you gamify it, right? If you get 5 questions right for the week, you'll be in the drawing for the thing. And then if you get the whole month right, but that's not the point. The point is that at least once in that month, everybody who's doing that has one, holy crap, I didn't know you could do that. That's amazing. They have one moment of pure surprise or joy that they, and you have the conversation within the community of, oh yeah, we use that one all the time. You do? How do you use that? Oh, well, I use, again, you can tell I'm a DM because I do all the voices. Yeah. So that's one piece of content that I really enjoy seeing work well, because again, it's low friction for the reader, for the consumer. I won't say low friction for the team doing it. It takes a little bit of effort to set it up, but once it's set up day by day by day, it doesn't take a lot, and the impact can be enormous.
That's pretty awesome. I think that's like I really like how low, not saying it's low effort, but just like how easy that is. Like it's not a barrier, because these game days that I build, like I talk about them a lot, but it takes a lot of development work to get them going. Yeah. Because I have to identify requirements, like what are we trying to teach them? And in order to teach them, what do we need to build? Like, what is the architecture of the thing that I need to create? And then how do I break that architecture in a very consistent way? Because it can't be chaotic. Like I tried to do something around core web vitals, and there's just too many variables. There are the machine that they're using, the browser that they're using, how is the internet that day? Did someone actually break the local Wi-Fi network? Those are the things you have to consider. And it's just too chaotic to reliably break.
How's the internet that day? Looking at you last Thursday.
Yes, exactly. I was going on stage when that happened.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was the worst. But yeah, those are the things that you have to consider. I did also want to call out another interactive piece that's sort of like the middle ground between what Leon was talking about and what I'm talking about is it's also very community focused. So or Dev.to, they do these challenges. And sometimes they're about features, and sometimes they're just about foundational engineering knowledge. But they're really great ways. They're really great ways to interact with or get a community interacting with an idea or a product. And people enjoy coming in every week. Okay, what's the new challenge? Is there a new JavaScript challenge? Is there a new front end challenge? Maybe there's a CSS one. And I think those are all really great ways to get people in the learning process without actually directly telling them that they're learning something,
Yeah.
Has someone already made Wordle for devs? They need to get that app up and going on the App Store.
Yeah, they do.
I want to jump in. One thing that you mentioned is for people who are thinking about interactive content, a problem you have to solve is exactly what Spence was just talking about just, what was their computer doing? What do they have on there? As a IT practitioner with 30 plus years of experience, when I see a tutorial that starts off with download this to GitHub repos, it's going to spin up 27 containers. There are 92 microservices. Here's a picture of the architecture that spans 4 screens. I'm done. Yeah. I don't know what you're trying to show me, but it's inside that is voodoo. Instead, creating a platform where the only thing that the consumer needs is a machine with a browser. That's it. That is the epitome, whether you're doing a live workshop, whether you're doing a quiz or a mission or whatever, you should be able to hand it to the person who's consuming it with incredibly minimal friction. And the reason why is exactly that. I can't install Python on this machine without calling security, and they're not going to let me do it. I can't remove those barriers to entry. There are platforms to do that. This is not a commercial for anybody, but it's Instruct. But it's, those environments which let you create a self-contained thing. You can do it as a cloud-based app or what, you can do it in a few different places. But it is that you have to do the heavy lifting. You, the creator, the publisher, do the heavy lifting. You create an environment that has everything the user needs, all the sample files, all the whatever, everything. And they just step into it and they start with step 1. That's incredibly important if you want your interactive content to be successful.
100%.
And we even see with passive like tutorials all the time where like clients will want to write about a tutorial that includes like 3 different third-party apps that require like enterprise level subscription cost. And it's like, dude, no one's going to be able to go into this and do it. Why are we writing about this right now? Unless you happen to be at the one company that has access to those 3 applications. Like it's just not. Yeah.
Exactly.
Guys.
Yeah. Even workshops are, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Like we're going down the path I wanted to go to, which is like basically preventing blockers when it comes to this interactive content or like not
Man, we are hitting all the beats, Leon. We're on it.
Got it. Yeah, good to go.
We must know what we're good. I like it.
Yeah.
This is good. You know what? Join us next week. We're going to talk about whatever. Like this is just going to be a thing from now on.
Yeah. The 3 of us. Yeah. Yeah. The differences in 3 and 5 combo for another day. Let's keep going down this road. What were you going to say, Spence?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like even that's one of the other main things that I really enjoy about. So like this game day thing that I'm doing, it's in partnership with like AWS, but like it's great because like they provide the AWS account that has the infrastructure and I provide the New Relic account. So when someone walks into like a game day session, all they have to do is register with their email to get a one-time passcode to access the event. And from there, they have access to both accounts that they need to like walk through the content. Like they just need their laptop and a browser. I've seen people like do my game days like on a tablet. Just because they didn't like, maybe we didn't do a good enough job telling people they needed their laptops, but like they were able to like interact with the content and get through it and understand like what was going on. But yeah, I've been in workshops where we spend the first sometimes 30, 45 minutes just like getting set up. And it's like, okay, like I've gave you 30 minutes of my life and I haven't learned anything yet. And that's not a good feeling. And that also affects how people view any content that you're going to do in the future. They're like, oh, well, if I go to another one of their webinars, like, am I going to spend another 30 minutes getting set up? Or is the setup that I did for the one before going to be in my favor in the next one? Or will I need entirely new credentials, accounts, things like of that nature? So, yeah.
Totally agree. Oh, goodness, voice cracking. So we have to measure everything. It's how you keep getting funding for doing cool stuff. How do you guys go about providing measurables when you need to for some of this more interactive content?
What do you want to start?
Leon, we'll feed you this time.
Okay. All right. Here we go. So the first thing I want to do, I read this a long time ago and it has stuck with me and I share it every chance I get. If you go to swyx.io, SWYX.io/measuring DevRel, measuring-DevRel. There's a graphic there, and on the on the left-hand side of this image is all the things that you can do for content, right? Or you can measure. You can measure clicks. You can measure likes. You can measure attendees. You can measure, all that stuff. But the only measurement that matters on the right-hand side is monthly active developers. How many people interacted with your thing? That's the thing, because we're not in sales and we have a soul, and we can't and we don't typically measure booking, pipe, closed deals, sale. Like we don't do that. It's interesting in the sense that my kids still need orthodontia and so I have to pay, but otherwise that's not the thing that I honestly care about. The thing I care about is how many people are active on the platform, active within the tool and doing things on a monthly basis. How many new reports did they create? How many new tests did they create? How many new, that's what I want to know. But that's an indirect measure. The direct measures are the things, like I said, clicks, likes, whatever. So that becomes the challenge. And I think that the way beyond that challenge is, first of all, to acknowledge, like the first step to solving a problem is acknowledging you have one. But I think is acknowledging that that's the circumstance and build hooks into your interactive content so that you can see who, going back to the example we were using before about having the AWS environment. Well, who clicked and added their email and signed up? And, can we correlate that to an account? I'm here to tell you, as somebody who's on the other side of it, I will give you a fake email 100% of the time, you will not be able to correlate my activity in an interactive piece of content to a customer use. You're not going to get it, right? So you have to infer those things. And again, that's why that right side of this, how many monthly active developers? If I did things, whatever they are, and monthly active developers goes up, we can presume that the things I did affected that. That's the measure. That's the one measure that DevRel has.
I love that site, by the way. I hadn't cleaned that yet. I'm going to probably be posting that on LinkedIn after this call. Spitz, what's your take here? Probably along the same lines.
When I first started DevRel, like that was the first question I asked was, how do we measure success? Like, all right, I wrote a blog post, like, how is it successful? Like, how do I know that I've actually made an impact? And I agree with Leon, like monthly active users is probably like the only metric when it comes from like content creation that makes sense. Like, was there an increase? You might see people talk about like, okay, like we've had like impressions, and those impressions led to like this is all. I'm forgetting like the term that the marketing, the pure marketing folks use, but like unearned traffic. Like this is all like unearned traffic. Like we didn't or unpaid.
We didn't post an ad and direct people to this blog. Yeah. They just showed up on their own.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like when it came to doing game days, right now, like my DevRel team is all about becoming like more, instead of just like a technical marketing arm, but also like becoming like a business unit as well. So that's why for like my interactive content, I'm doing a lot more customer focused, specific content, because what that means is I only interact with like teams that are currently like in a process of, or accounts that are currently in the process of like some contract change, like they're like increasing their spend or something. And so when I do a game day with that customer, then like I become a part of that pipeline to increase like that spend. And so like now we have like, okay, like DevRel influenced this pipeline and like this deal went through. So therefore DevRel had a success. Like we're doing a lot of circumstantial things right now. Like, did my game day move the needle or not? Like, likely if they're using the features. But now that it's like directed with an account, we can see like, did they increase their use of distributed tracing? Like, have they increased their spend in these areas that we focused on in the game day? Like, did we solve a problem that they were having and now they're actively using the features that we told them would solve it? And it opens up like kind of like a new world of like, how effective was this content, and can this content like be reused? So I'm doing a lot of work with like our sales org to determine like what are the most important features, or like what are the features that you're talking about the most in the field, so that way I can build content around that, and then we can teach people the skills they need to like solve their problems. And now I'm a part of like the sales pipeline. But yeah, like everything else outside of like these targeted customer things, it's exactly what Leon said. Like that's the metric. I just happen to find like this niche way of like bogarting my way into the sales pipeline. Like, and that's not an option that's available to most people in DevRel. Maybe eventually one day it'll be a more common practice, but that's not the current practice.
Yeah.
I gotta jump in here and just signal boost the idea that live, it hits different. I've had conversations with executives before where they're like, hey, we have a training site. We've got, training. We've got, blah, blah university. We've got all that. Why are you going to go to a location and get people in the room? Because that's expensive. And there is nothing as powerful as having one person in the room tell another person in the room why your tool is awesome or how it helped them. I could say the same thing 20 times in a row, and it wouldn't mean the same thing as when this completely disconnected person says it. And that reaction, the ability when you're doing a live workshop or a live training thing to say, all right, I just showed you this technique. How could you use that today? And have people start to brainstorm in the room, multiple companies. Yes. That is invaluable in so many ways. It's just it's just a different thing. And yes, it takes more coordination. It takes whatever. But whether you're talking about user groups or meetups or on-site workshops or whatever it is, it's worth the value for that. It's worth the expense.
Multiplier. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things that leaders have to see live, or they've had to stick their hand on the stove and learn the hard way. Like sales and direct sales is great until it's not. And then when cold drives up, what keeps you alive? It's that evergreen community that you've been interacting with that keeps your basis coming in. And it's one of those things you can't measure. It's not something where like, if we start tomorrow, you're going to start seeing the results in 3 months. It's something that you got to do now. So it's working 3 or 4 years from now and continue to keep you driving.
100%.
Yeah. So I'm going to break format a little bit here because Katie's been waiting patiently. They dropped us a question in the Q&A before we get into some of the closing questions here. How do you manage different skill levels in your active versus passive content? I find this interesting. We run into this a lot with like writing content in the technical space of like, where do you land on skill level? And then there's even the juxtaposition between like talent of the engineer or technical professional versus their talent on this specific topic. And there's, those can be different within themselves too. So let's start with you this time, Spence. How do you sort of manage the experience?
Yeah, when I'm doing like passive content, so like blogs, videos, that sort of thing, and I'm explaining like either a new feature or some new like concept, I start off as if I'm explaining it to someone who doesn't know anything about the thing that I'm talking about. And then from there, I build on like that foundation and it becomes like slightly more advanced, or like you just build on the foundational topic at first. If it's something that is widely known or consumed, you just give like a small reminder, like, okay, this is what we're talking. This is what it is. Like maybe like a paragraph, and then from there, based on that contact point, you build out the things that are new or more advanced. When it comes to the way that I do interactive content, if I'm live in person, when I'm introing the content, when I'm waking the room up, I'm like, oh, how many people are New Relic users? Like, how many people have experience with like monitoring observability? And now, because of that interaction, I know who doesn't have any experience and who does, and I put those people together, so that the person who actually like knows enough about my platform can teach the person that knows nothing about the platform, and they become, in the midst of this competition, they become the teacher, and I don't have to do the explanations. They get to ask each other, and it feels a little bit more personal, and it's also more powerful because like they're connecting with someone that they've never worked with before. I hope that answers the question.
It does. Yeah, totally. Leon, anything to add there, man?
Yeah. So I like what you were talking about for passive or less interactive content, right? Link to additional concepts. It lets you do what I call scaffolding your content, where, I don't need to tell you about traceroute because I already did a whole thing on traceroute. Go check it out over here. Like you can link to other stuff, know where your library, whether it's internal to the company or external and beloved piece of content, that's fine. That kind of thing. Also, just remember for passive content, Google exists. People can look up their own terms. Again, it's passive because the timer isn't on them. And also just make sure that you're not using terms or concepts that are completely internal to your company. If you have, the Gafrinkle function and you're saying, I just do a Gafrinkle. And nobody knows what Gafrinkle is. Like you just made it up internally and nobody knows what it, don't do that. That's just frustrating. And now, like everyone on this webinar is like, "What the heck is Gafrinkle?" Like, I'm the only one who uses it. So, for the content, for the live, or for the more interactive stuff, especially the live workshops, having an assistant professor in the room is always helpful. An extra set of hands. It can be an SE. It can be somebody who's in sales. Somebody who's just going to circulate and keep track. It's okay for people who are doing things to tap out and say, you know what, I'm okay. Everybody doesn't have to be lockstep on things, but if you can in your content, build cheat codes, build functions that say, if you've missed the last 3 steps or it's still not working, type this and it will automatically fix you to this step, right? Say, jump you forward. Also make sure that you set your expectations. A live or interactive train. So my background is in classroom training for adults on computers, back in the 80s and 90s. So you have to understand that a beginner class is not an advanced class, and somebody who's in the room asking for advanced material is going to be disappointed. On the other hand, somebody who's a beginner in a session that's advanced, you have to, at a certain point, just set a threshold and say, nope, the expectations were this. But also know that live interactive content is going to take you probably twice or 3 times longer to teach the same set of things as you thought. So just make sure that you're aware of that. But again, cheat codes, having somebody in the room, the first time you teach it, you're going to learn what you need to know to be able to actually teach it. The first one is really just for practice. And then you can figure it out. So those are just a couple of things to keep in mind.
Totally. All right. To end the convo today, which has been great, before we just go back into talking D&D for another hour.
Yep.
So the reality is a lot of DevRel teams really just one person. They're either at seed series, series A. What do you tell those individuals that are looking to build more interactivity into their current information? Like, what's step one for them? What would you say is like, okay, here's the low hanging fruit for you to start working on over the next month or so?
Oh, so I'm going to steal what Spence already said. Talk to your support team, talk to your SEs, talk to your salespeople. What are the 3 things you get asked every single time? What are the 3 calls you get most often? What are the things that your prospects don't know that you wish they knew so that you could move the conversation forward? But everybody always misunderstands or whatever. Those basically, it's your top 3 to those groups. That's what's going to tell you what to build first interactively, because that's the need.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Like having those priorities is definitely number one. And then one thing that's been like very important for me is like understanding like how to make my work for me. So like I've created like a content piece. Like how can I take this content piece and like make more content pieces about it? So if I create a video, like can I get a transcription of that video and then just turn it into a blog post that is attached to that? Now that I have like both of those pieces, can I build out a demo application that shows like how those features work? Okay, I have the demo app. Like, can I like build that a little bit more and then make it like interactive in a way that allows someone to like play around with it and like learn how the feature works? That's what you do when you like first start out, and especially like if you're alone and you're like one person trying to do the job of an entire DevRel team. Like make your work for you, and just make sure you're staying in line with the priorities of the company.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
I want to add, just not everything has to be interactive.
Yeah.
You can pick, but yeah, the reuse idea. I have one idea and it's a video and it's a blog post and it's a workshop. It can be all those things. You've done the work once, but you've reused it. That's where you force multiply your own effort and show. So yeah, everything Spence. You didn't need me. You just had to Spence. He has all the ideas.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
no, I needed both of you guys. Yeah, thank you so much for joining today. It's been great. Really appreciate y'all. If you guys, anyone that's still hanging around, thank you for joining today. We do these every couple of weeks. We'll follow up with a recording after the call. Otherwise, Spence, Leon, if you guys ever need an extra player, one of your games, you guys know where to find me. Otherwise, really appreciate y'all. We'll have to get you on another webinar here in the future. Everyone have a good day. Thanks for joining.